Truth.
Truth. Welcome to Trusting the Truth with Samuel Tolley, where we view the world through the lens of Jesus Christ. We do not view Jesus Christ through the lens of the world. How you doing? This is Sam Tolley with Trusting the Truth. And as you should know, and I'm sure everybody know, we had a devastating Southern California fire this past January that the destruction was just unbelievable. I had a chance to visit the area afterwards, and I thought it would be a good idea to try to get a California update. So the person that's going to help me and update us on that and maybe a few other issues is Dr. Wayne C. Cooper of Lincoln Avenue Christian Church. Dr. Cooper, who recently autographed the book called Healing the Souls of the Black Man. Black Man is a pastor in Pasadena, which is neighboring Altadena, and I'm sure that he would be able to tell us a lot from that situation. So bring it on. How you doing, Pastor Cooper?
Hey there, Brother Sam. How are you? Thank you for having me today, man.
Good. Well, you know, this is your second time on, and I've always asked men of God to open up in prayer when we come in before Him, because we come before Him, and no matter if we ain't even about Him at the moment. So let's hear from you.
Yeah. Father, we thank you again for this opportunity, Lord, to discuss and to share, Lord, the pertinent issues that impact our lives, especially here in California. Lord, I pray that this conversation would be productive, that it would be informative, and that it would be helpful to those who are listening and who will listen, Lord. I pray that you will grant us wisdom, Lord, as we speak. Give us the wisdom of your word. Give us also, Lord, your compassion, that as we speak about it, we understand, dear Lord, that you are a compassionate God. So may this time that you've allotted be fruitful, and that it will ultimately, Lord, bring glory to you. We ask this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You know, Pastor, I grew up in Pasadena. That's you know, that's my hometown. And well, Pasadena and Altadena, they're so close together. It's almost like one community. It's like you got the lower end and then the one that's going up to the hills for people that aren't familiar with it. But we with this devastating fire we had recently, I had an opportunity. Well, actually, even before I had an opportunity to go up there, you know, somebody close to me sent me a short clip, and I want to show a clip of their house smoldering.
Mm.
And let's take a quick look at that. You know, that used to be their house. It's just rubble. Then the camera swings across the street to the neighbor that was in front of them. And actually, this little picture doesn't even do justice as far as the damage. I mean, the main thoroughfare going up to, they lived on Fair Oaks going up to the mountains. And that whole, you know, when you go past Altadena Drive, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know what we're talking about, there was nothing. Now, they recently sent me another little short clip because as bad as it is or was, there has been some progress. And here is their home now. Well, what was left of their home. There's the old pool, but at least all the rubble has been removed, all the devastation. Now, as a pastor and community member, I know that you stay, I think, in Covina or
Well, I actually live in Azusa.
Azusa. Okay, I thought it was east of Pasadena,
Yeah.
but well, shoot, you know, tell us what your thoughts on the whole thing. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you were down there from the beginning.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for having me. Well, I can definitely talk about it because, for starters, we estimated somewhere between 20 and 23 of our families in our church, they lost their home.
Wow.
Yeah, and so those people, needless to say, are still, trying to get their footing in a literal sense because some of them, like those family members, have been displaced. But here's the problem: the problem is, even like when the insurance companies has been trying to do right by them and trying to put them up, in a temporary way till they can get, until I guess the state or the EPA or whomever gives the approval of clearing out things, and then the rebuilding process, because many of the people have been on the record stating that they would prefer to rebuild if possible.
Hmm.
But here's the thing: a lot of the, like, we have church members who were displaced and they could not find them homes in the Pasadena, Altadena area. So, for example, I have members who are as far as away as West LA,
Mm.
and some. I'm talking about, even there's two elderly sisters, probably approaching 80 years old if they haven't hit it already. They are all the way down in Orange County
Wow.
because there were nothing available for them to stay. At least to the point where the insurance company wanted to pay, because, as you probably know, being from Pasadena, it's very expensive in Pasadena, Altadena. And here's what we also learn about, what I've learned, even when we come through COVID, what I've learned is that whenever there is a crisis in the community, you would think that there would be more compassion or more of a sense of, let's be helpful. But everything seems to go up in price. If you notice, everything seems to go up. So the people who were displaced, they're all around in different places of Southern California, but none of them. I have another elderly man. He's a minister. He and his family were great. They were fortunate enough to get a home up in Sierra Madre,
Oh,
and
that's
yeah,
fairly close.
yeah. That he is probably the closest of all the people who have lost their home. And then the interesting thing about him is that he and his wife, and they're like 83, 84 years of age, but they had a daughter who's a nurse who lived, I mean, the house literally next to theirs, where both of them lost their houses.
Hmm.
And so the daughter is living with her parents for right now. And so, very prestigious area there in Altadena, beautiful home. I mean, he's just a great guy altogether, but they lost a lot, and so we've seen it where the families have been devastated. Now, I've been to subsequent to the fire. I've been to meetings
Okay.
that that were designed, I guess, to talk about what are the next steps. Um, as you know, because I was glad to see that picture you just showed about how the rubble had been removed from that particular home. Because I tell you, even though I'm really sorry for the loss of the home, how they clean things up looks really good. So, as I understand the process, that the EPA, which, as you know, is a federal agency,
Hmm.
they have to come in and give the green light, to rebuild, because there's other considerations about the damage that smoke did. Also, I do have a few members, Sam, that their house did not burn down, but they did get impacted because of ashes. And,
Okay.
and so they still had to move. So they were still displaced for a little while, until the EPA can come in and assess the ash damage, the smoke, and all of that. And once that was all cleaned out, those families were able to move back into their homes, fortunately. But our church is still reeling from that because, like I said, you think about it, 23 families, you're talking about roughly 50 or 60 people when you think about that. And they've been displaced. Now, many of them, have still made their way to church here and there. We don't necessarily see them every single week, but they do make the effort to show up, like a couple of times during the month and things like that. So it's been devastating. Now, getting back to the meetings that I've been in, one of the issues, and again, here's another thing. So one of the issues, Sam, from the meeting that I think everybody needs to pay attention to is that the meeting have been around this notion that some, not all, but some insurance companies, some property, if you want to say buyers, have tried to come in and try to, if you believe what everybody else is saying, that they're trying to steal, quote unquote, the people's land, because as you know, the people are in such a vulnerable position right now.
Hmm.
So I'm hearing stories like there are people, properties, especially in Elka. Nobody in Pasadena that I know, because the fire mostly was in the Altadena. Now, if
Right. That's the food again.
if it was Pasadena, I don't know about that, but I have a lot of members who lived in Altadena, and so what I hear is that some of those properties was multi-million dollar properties, and so the insurance company wants to come in now and offer maybe say $200,000
Wow.
when the property is worth 800,000, 900,000, that kind of stuff, and they want to give them a small check, but it is believed that sometimes when you're in a vulnerable position,
Right.
people think that you're willing to maybe do what you normally wouldn't do, and that is to accept monies that was substantially less than what your property value was and is. And so we have that, and then you have people who are just so we have. It's amazing that you have you probably have heard that there were people when homes were being burnt and when families was trying to get back in just to try to ascertain the damages. There were people, I guess sometimes you call them squatters,
Mm.
and people coming in trying to steal. I mean, the police have had to arrest people from stealing some of the items that were left over in the fire, or people actually trying to go down to different, administrative buildings to try to get information about that property so they can try to falsify documents.
Yeah, I heard about stuff like that.
Oh
That's
yeah, man.
crazy.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you would think that people would have more of a heart, because of what people are going through. But it's like I've discovered in my life, and the 30 plus years that I've been here in Southern California,
Mhm.
is that people really believe in taking advantage of you when you're down. It's like you again. I guess where people like myself and we would think about compassion. We think about people's loss. We think about what people are going through. The only thing I want to do is help people. I don't want to. I don't want to rob people. I don't want to take advantage of people. I don't want to do any of that. Our church has been a beacon in providing goods for people. I'm talking about everything from clothing to food. I mean,
Mhm.
even hygiene products and I mean, you name it. Pretty much, we have provided it. In fact, in the vestibule area of our church, when you walk in to the left, there's a big area like where we have some of our history. So we have some of the photos of the former pastors. We have, it's a big space. We also have had teachings going on in that room. Well, that room now is occupied by a whole lot of stuff that we've given out to the community, and so people come in almost on a weekly basis, getting everything from toothbrushes to toothpaste to toiletries to clothing to food, and even we've been blessed. We've been able to give out financial blessings in the form of like cards, you may have some like credit card type stuff that we may have to give people. So we've been doing that kind of stuff as well. So we've been fortunate because people have passed that on to us. So for right now, I would just pause and let you come back in, but I would just say that Yeah, it's been a devastating time, and the unfortunate thing is that there's been the crooks and the dishonest people who have been around seeing how they can take advantage of vulnerable people.
And that's an unfortunate thing. But I did read about and see when I visited, there were like your church, many churches and many individuals that were helping those that were hurt. Like the family that the picture that I showed you, they left their homes that were hurt. Like the family that the picture that I showed you, they left their home with just the clothes on their back, and
Wow.
and they didn't. They had nothing but some people gave them some clothes, and they were able to. And fortunately, they didn't have any insurance issues,
Mm.
so they were able to get a place in a trailer home in Covina.
Okay.
And while they got a 2 year window that they're looking to rebuild, but I also heard that probably a couple of weeks before that firestorm hit, that one of those insurance, and I think it's State Farm, I'm not sure, canceled a bunch of folks. And
Yeah.
you got folks that got canceled that didn't get renewed. Oh, and then I'm finding out just like there in Altadena and also in Pacific Palisades, they had water issues. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just unbelievable to me. I'm like I said, I'm sitting here in Goodyear, Arizona, online watching KTLA and KTTV online just so I can get a grasp of what's going on. And I wanted to come out there, but I said, number one, all I'm gonna be is in the way, and number two, they wasn't gonna let me get near anything anyway. So there wasn't nothing for me to do but just sit here and watch and contact my kids once in a while to find out how they were doing. I had a son that's living in Van Nuys.
Wow.
Every time I turned around, he's talking about he has to evacuate.
Mm.
My other kids were in the Antelope Valley, so it didn't hit them. But you know,
Yeah.
like I said, when you hear about the water issues and all this
Yeah.
insurance issues,
Yeah.
who's talking about all this stuff?
Yeah, well, if I can interject this, one of the things, that I think was a national wide story, and as you know, like up in LA, for example, the fact that they don't have any water in the hydrants. And President Trump was talking about that. Now, I have to confess, I had heard about this particular thing I'm gonna name in a minute, but I heard President Trump mention it. But I have to be honest and say, I thought it was just talk. I didn't know the legitimacy to it. But one of the reason the word got out, or one of the reason why water was not in the hydrants in and around the LA Metroplex was because the governor was trying to protect a certain type of fish.
The Delta smelt.
Yeah, and something about that if the water was to be let out into the outlets to come down so they can, access it, um, that it would do harm to that particular species of fish. And of course, you probably have heard President Trump what his views are about that. He didn't think very highly of that. And I had heard that before another time, but I didn't focus on it. I'm talking about this is before the fire. I
Right.
had heard something about, yeah, that we hope we never get a fire because we don't have any water in the hydrants and they trying to protect the fish. And I'm sure they had said the name of the fish. I just forgot all
Yeah,
about it.
the Delta smelt. I knew about the fish thing a long time ago because they had I think I know they did that. Newsom had decommissioned some dams.
Hmm.
So, but and a lot of middle. When I say middle, I'm talking about like the middle of California farmland went dry that they couldn't use because of this fish, this little bitty fish that nobody could eat or nothing.
Hmm.
Uh, this environmental crazy thing to
Yeah.
me. So all this farmland is not being used. California got some of the most farmland in the whole. The climate out there.
Yeah.
That's one thing I miss
Right.
besides my grass
Right.
was the climate in California. And so they got so much farmland that is the nation's envy, but it's being cut off because the water is not getting to the farmland because of the natural runoff because they avoid it for this stupid fish. Now, what I didn't know, and I knew that he had decommissioned some dams up there, trying to bring it back to the natural topography or whatever. I don't know.
Mhm.
But what I didn't know that they had reservoirs that didn't have water in it, like in LA and stuff. I didn't know anything about that. That was shocking to me.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, so it's so yeah, well, what you had alluded to earlier about the water issue, because like in our area, they call it the Eaton fire. And so there was definitely some issues about that being talked about prior to the fire. And the mere fact that, Southern California has had tons of fire, down through the many, many years.
Mhm.
I've always, asked, why is it that we haven't gotten on top of that yet? Because I get it. Sometimes, the fires are done as man-made, people do stupid stuff. And then sometimes maybe it's due to the environment, things of that nature. But I still just wonder, it's like, well, and I think President Trump speaks to this all the time, is that by this time, though, Sam, we should be a state that, it's kind of like my home state of Florida. One
Mhm.
of the things that the people always know, even though we expect hurricanes to come literally every year, is that the state has gotten so prepared that the state of Florida is not out of commission long at all. I
Right.
mean, like, I don't know if you remember when they had the last hurricane, they had a bridge wiped out that literally connect one town. It's like an island town to the next one, and within 7 days, that bridge was put back. I mean,
Mm.
it was redone and put back within 7 days. And so, and a lot of that has to do with the leadership, of course.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. The,
that's
the
it.
leadership plays a role in that there, rather than just being or feeling sorry. Oh, our state got hit by a hurricane. Well, Florida is right in the path of a hurricane. So rather than talk about it, they just get prepared for it. And I think they have so much stuff already in place that when the hurricane comes, it's not a whole lot left to do other than, of course, removing the debris and things of that nature and all of that. And I get it. Every year is different because it hits different places down there. I'm from Tampa Bay. The most I ever got. Now we got strong winds. We got rain, but the city of Tampa has never been hit directly by a hurricane. Now this last one, they said this is the time. I mean, everybody swore they evacuated everybody, and they said, hey, this is it. Tampa Bay never gets hit by the eye, but the eye is going to come through here and do its number. And by the grace of God, the last minute that storm turned and went another direction.
Mm.
So I think it's about preparation. Southern California is too big, too beautiful, and I believe has too many resources to be unprepared when fires come. It's too many times our fires get out of control and just burn up precious, real estate and property that it shouldn't have done.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you touched on it when you said leadership. And uh, like you said, they know the hurricanes are coming to Florida. We all know that. Earthquakes gonna come to California sometime, but you don't know when they're coming. It's not
Right.
like earthquake season. But that Santa Ana, that's coming,
Yeah.
you know. And I've always thought about it. I said, it's hot and the Santa Ana's coming. And see, this is firebug season.
Mhm.
Those not pedophiles, those I forgot what you call the fire dude. But them folks that like to make fires,
Arsonist.
yeah. But there's another word too. But anyway, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We talking about the same thing. Those those folks, when it's fire season, if they get an opportunity, they're gonna start one. And sometime,
Oh yeah.
would you they would be sometimes arsonists or firefighters. Sometimes people get in that business
Yeah.
because they like fires. And I'm not accusing, I'm not disparaging
Yeah.
firefighters.
I hear
We
you.
need them. I love them, and the vast majority of them are decent, wholesome, trying
Absolutely.
to start stop fire. So I don't want no firefighters thinking that I'm trying to accuse you guys.
Right.
I'm just saying, just like when I was a kid, I would have never thought that pedophiles would be the ice cream man. But
Oh yeah.
but if you think about it, an ice cream man or a clown, they want to be around where the kids are. So yeah, I think preparation is without a doubt. The reservoir should never be empty. Like the one in Pacific Palisades that they were waiting on bids or whatever to put this tent or whatever over the top of the thing, and it was like a whole year. That's just uncalled for.
Yeah.
Uh, and the people of California is going to have to make some decisions how they want to live their life. Do they want to just continue to live on one party rule? Because I believe firmly in a two-party system because man is flawed. You got
Right.
to have checks and balances,
Absolutely.
to make sure you don't go. But California is totally run by a Democrat Party
Right.
with nobody else managing them. And that brings me to my second thing I was talking about. Just like with the deportation thing we got going on, a lot of cities, a lot of states. California is a sanctuary state. That's the way the governor set it up. Well, I'm not gonna say the governor. The state is
Yeah,
run.
the legislative body.
The whole thing is run by the one party. But and what drives me up a wall is you've been to downtown LA. You can go 3 to 6 miles east of down of City Hall, and you don't even know where you are. You're in a completely different world. You're in a place where people are living in tents and cardboard boxes
Mhm.
on sidewalks. I've been on driving over there where I wouldn't dare walk the street. I did it once. I made a video one time talking to some homeless people, but the only ingress and open areas were the driveways to the businesses.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen where they've had bills where they're spending millions and millions of dollars supposedly for the homeless situation. But it drives me crazy because the Bible says that if you don't take care of your own home first, you're worse than an infidel. And I just don't understand how that state or any other state would want to spend millions of dollars on folks that don't belong here and leave Californians and American citizens on the street.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. Well, Sam, in thinking about you being a native California, I'm sure you remember a lot of people. I'm bringing this up because people may not know this. In your lifetime, California, you may recall, used to be a conservative state
Yeah.
many years ago.
Hmm.
When you go back, even like during the Reagan time as governor, it wasn't a one party state then, even then, and then when you go back before him, it certainly was not a one party place. And then now all of a sudden, and I think Hollywood plays a role into that as well. But getting to the immigrant situation, California, what I find is this. So it has been said during the Biden administration that anywhere between 12 and 20 million illegals have come into our country. Depending on what numbers you believe, but President Trump administration seemed to believe it's somewhere between 20 and 21 million. Other people will say somewhere between 12, 15. But in either case, that's too much.
Right.
But I want to tell you this, and I know you would know this, being a California native. A lot of times, however, we don't talk about how many illegals have come to California alone. Because when you include that number, California have let in so many illegals in this state that I don't even think the census even count them. I think because when people ask me, when I have people visiting from the East Coast or wherever, and we're on the highway and they see so many cars and they see how slow the traffic can be at times
Ooh, I
and
don't
things of
miss
that
the
nature,
ball.
and everybody's asking how in the world, why does this state have, and I tell them, you got to understand, not only is this the biggest state in the union, but you got to account for somewhere between 8 and 10 million illegals that not even documented. and they're on the road. They're driving, and some of them are driving that don't even have license. Most of them don't even have license. And the ones who have license, because I learned this through a young lady who came from Mexico. It's just she knew somebody at DMV,
Mm.
and no joke, she knew somebody because I asked her point blank. I said, are you a native? I mean, are you a citizen? She said, no. She said, me and my sister came from Mexico, and she says her sister's in Las Vegas, and she ended up in Southern California. She has about 3 or 4 children, and she's not married. The last time I knew, because I used to see her at a restaurant is where I met her, but she used to tell me her whole story, and she told me, she said, well, I ain't gonna lie to you. She says, but I have a California license, but I am not a citizen. She says, but I met and knew people at the DMV, and they're also Latino people, and they just did me a favor.
Well, I think I'm not sure. I didn't look it up if they made a law in California where they would just go ahead and give licenses to illegals anyway. But I know a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
hadn't
these
heard that
people.
yet. Now, from what I
Yeah, I
understand, it's
don't
still,
know.
yeah. Now,
But
you say you heard it?
no, I said
Oh,
I don't know.
you
I'm
don't
not
know?
going to try
Yeah,
to
I hadn't
say
heard
that
it.
that's the case. It
Yeah,
may be, but I don't know.
yeah. You may be right. I mean, I know this. I know that there are a lot of people who will want that to happen. I know that.
I'm gonna look at it right now.
Yeah,
But I, you know,
yeah. But it's just that, you know, when you're talking about spending tons of money on illegals, and when you consider, if you go downtown Los Angeles and you go to Skid Row, I
mhm.
can tell you in the last 5 years, Sam.
It says yes.
Oh, okay. Skid
AB
Row.
AB 60, California issues driver's license to undocumented immigrants. This law passed in 2013. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I didn't even realize that. But anyways, um, but I would tell you this: the illegal thing has really hurt California for a lot of reasons. But another reason is because when you deal with Skid Row, for example,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you remember when we in LA had Mayor Garcetti, and he was the mayor. He was the son of a DA, and so he was asking the city for like like $2 billion that they claim that they wanted to take care of the homeless community, and that includes Skid Row and all that stuff. Well, let me just tell you, my brother, all that has done in the last 5 years, that has simply expanded. I was down in Los Angeles, heck, a couple of weeks ago, and I can tell you, I went home a different way. I normally go there one way and come back the other way, the same way rather. And this particular time, I decided rather than going back to my office in Pasadena, I would go home to Azusa, and I
Mhm.
decided to go a different direction. And when I saw how Skid Row has spread with a lot of homeless people, I could not believe it. See, I used to go down there. I'm trying to get either it was on Tuesday or Thursday nights. I had a friend who used to run a ministry on Skid Row. He would always ask me to come and speak. And so I would go down there, sometimes bring my choir with me and things like that. And so I went that way, and I was like, oh my goodness. I said, Daryl needs to see this here because he no longer works down there. But I'm like, he needs to see how this area has expanded with this whole Skid Row mentality and homelessness. And but it's funny that nobody is asking the question. Garcetti, where did the money go?
Mm.
Y'all put it in the budget, but where did the money go? Everybody, all these immigrants are coming in, and then your own citizens are left out. They don't have any resources, and next thing you know, Los Angeles has become like the illegal immigrant capital of America.
Yeah, and actually, California. I think
Yeah.
California has the most.
Oh yeah.
No, well,
Well,
no, excuse me. I was thinking something else. Not just illegals, but homeless.
mhm,
Many homeless people
mhm.
head to California as well. And like you said, the homeless problem down there. Um, like I said, if you go to you go down to the Civic Center, you could be on the east, no, the west side of City Hall, and then you can go around there and stuff look relatively normal. And you get on the east side of City Hall and you walk a block or two, you don't even know where you are. Or if you go down to what is it, MacArthur's Park, further on the west side, you don't know where you are. It's just some areas that are just totally weird. I mean, you got the vendors. I'm sure these vendors don't have licenses and stuff where they'll make regular vendors license up to the yin yang. When I was a property manager, you had to go through so many hoops to do a business thing. It was
Yes, a
ridiculous.
lot of red tape in Southern California. That's one of the problems with fixing things is because there's so much red tape, um, so much in Pasadena. If you're going to do anything by the way of building and things like that, the red tape is just too much, and it's very discouraging to people. And that's one reason why I don't know how Altadena work in terms of what their reputation is, but the one thing I do know, um, hopefully, they won't have to deal with all the red tape that Pasadena has, because if so, it's going to take them a long time to rebuild because to get even plans approved.
Yeah.
That there can take, I hear that could take a year just to get your plans approved.
Well, now you realize that the new homes, they're going to have to make sure. First, they got rid of the asbestos and whatnot from the old construction because the home's been there for many years. So now, and I'm pretty sure all the new homes are going to have like tile roofs. You know, the wood shingle is gone. But like you said, the vultures that are hoping that they can buy people out because you know as well as I know, Pasadena and Altadena, there's really no place to build.
Uh-uh.
You know, well, there is in Altadena now. They're
Yeah,
wetting, but completely blocks and blocks
right,
of Altadena are just gone. It's just prime real estate because the closer you get to LA, the more expensive your real estate is. And Altadena was completely built out. Pasadena is completely built out.
right.
And so with those blocks and blocks of just vacant dirt now, yeah, I could see people trying to offer somebody, I'll give you $80, 80 cents on the dollar today.
Mhm.
You know, you don't have to worry about nothing. Yeah, I'll give you this money and you're good to go. But no, you
Yeah,
ain't good to go because you still got to find a place to live. And you can't,
right,
if you sold your home in Altadena or Pasadena right now, you ain't gonna be able to buy another home in Altadena or Pasadena unless you got more money or income to come because the price is so high. Or people end up moving, like I said, to the Arizona or to Florida or North Carolina or Texas or something.
mhm.
So
I agree.
it's amazing out there. You know
Yeah.
what? You know, I think I was thinking about, and it's crazy, and I've been waiting on California to wake up, or what is the citizens going to say? Because I remember Governor Newsom has signed a law
Mm,
that in 2035 it would be illegal to make or to sell gas combustible engines in the state of California.
mm,
And right now, this year, they made it illegal to buy gas powered lawnmowers or weed whackers or anything like that. You know as well as I know that there ain't no way in the world you're gonna be able to drive up and down the 110, the 405, the 91, the 10, any of them things in
yeah,
an electric car. You're gonna
yeah,
have stuff stopping everywhere. It doesn't
yeah,
make any sense at all.
yeah, yeah. That is true. Because yeah, yeah, that is true, man. It's I was thinking about it. Who was it? I think it was what was the Biden administration. You remember? It's funny, isn't it, when they were trying to mandate, a certain amount of electric cars by a certain year, and then that happened in California. I think Newsom gave it like 30 to 35 years. He said he wants every car in this state to be electric. But here's the funny thing, and everybody laugh about it. Is like, first of all, you don't even have enough grid to even keep power going. I mean,
Right.
think about it. Like you got to borrow power from other states, and so it's like, what are you talking about? Like, so you're gonna build the charging station where, and how you're going to do that, seeing as how you don't even have enough grid and things that you need to have power coming in. Like you don't even have that. So we all know that's a joke. Now, 35 years from now, I don't know. I don't know whether the Lord gonna keep me around or not. But if I am, it's a good chance I probably won't be in California anyways. But still, the citizens here, I don't believe that's going to go. I think even in legislation, they'd have to change that and say this is unrealistic. We don't even have the power source to even have the type of thing that he's talking about. So, like you say, you get out there on the 405 and everybody, the car's stopping. Well, look, y'all having a power up your car? Well, no, we ain't got no power stations.
Yeah. Well, they've already rescinded the one on electric trucks. I mean, these big giant trucks running. Number one, the battery is so heavy it's going to tear up the road.
And the
Them
battery
things
costs about
stop.
$30,000.
Yeah, them things stop. There ain't no place to go. So they rescinded the big truck thing. And you're right, they're gonna have to get rid of the car mandate thing. But what I found weird, like when I was in property manager, uh, I used to manage shopping centers. So I hired landscapers and different vendors. So these people have to cut all these lawns and stuff. And now they're talking about going around with battery packs and all kinds of stuff just to keep the thing going. Or what smart people going to do? They're going to drive to Arizona or Nevada and buy them some gas powered stuff and bring it back to California. So the California businessmen lose the money, and the Arizona and the Nevada folks clean up. It's ridiculous,
Yeah,
and just like that would happen with cars too if it went there. But there's no way the car is going to survive because, like I said, I used to live in Palmdale, and I would drive to North Hollywood to go to work every day. So I would need to drive to work if I can get there on that charge up before, and then I drove around the city or around Southern California shopping centers, going to Compton and Inglewood and Glendale and Eagle Rock to visit my various shopping centers. So there's no way that I would be able to keep an electric vehicle moving doing that. And then this idea of I'm gonna sit for about a half an hour someplace waiting to get a charge. You think if your wife had to stop and get a charge in the evening at 6 o'clock, or I mean 7 o'clock is at night, then no man want gonna let that happen. That
yeah,
stuff is not no man worth his salt.
yeah.
That stuff is it's ridiculous. I just don't
I
even.
have two neighbors who have Teslas. One 2 doors down from me, and then one across the street, so to speak. Both of whom are Asian, really, really nice people. And one of the things I did, I said, because I'm not gonna lie to you, Sam, I consider my youngest daughter, my oldest and the youngest daughter. I got three girls, and one lives in Atlanta, and two lives in Houston, Texas. And my youngest daughter in Houston has a Tesla. So I gave it some consideration. I like, you know what? Before I leave this earth, I'm gonna know what it's like to have an electric car of sorts. I was trying to debate. I was going to get this car. It's made by Cadillac. It's called the Lyric or something like that. The Lyri like Q. But anyways, it was a nice car. But then I said, no, I think I'll just stick with a Tesla. But then I asked both of these families. I said, now tell me this: when you guys are charging up, um, like, because they have the kind that you plug in, and so I said, does that impact your electric bill? And they both told me, yeah, that it pretty substantially impacted their electric bill. Now, last September, Sam, I bought a new car. I bought a beautiful. Um, I always wanted to drive one on, but I had a Mercedes. I had a Mercedes GLC 300 SUV. So I got the Lexus SUV, the RX 350. So they had you can get them either uh, gas or you have what is called hybrid. That
Mhm.
both and. And the interesting thing is, because I didn't know it, because initially I was thinking, well, I'm not going to get the hybrid because I don't want to be plugging in. Well, as it turns out, I didn't understand
You didn't have to plug in a hybrid.
Yeah, the hybrid, you don't need a plug.
Right.
Yeah, it has a inbuilt mechanism that the battery charges itself.
Right.
But the only thing that I wasn't sure about and that I wasn't comfortable with was I didn't understand the nature of how, like, when the gas kicks in, when the electric kicks in, because I was asking questions. Well, then someone said, well, when you're out on the highway, just driving, an open highway, you pretty much use your gas. And then when you're in the city limit, when you come into stop signs or stop lights, and then the electric is what kicks in. And I'm like, I don't even want to be bothered with trying to know which one is doing what. And so I went on and just got my gas car. Yeah, because I think if I ever owned an electric car, I think I would have it to be pure electric, not a hybrid.
Yeah. I remember many years ago when they first came out with hybrids, I was going to, I looked at one. It was, I forgot. I think it was an Altima. It was a Nissan, and it was a hybrid. And they said, well, as long as you're under 25 miles, was it 25 or 35 miles, something like that. As long as I was under that, it was going to operate on the electric. But once I kicked in to more, then it would go to gas.
Right.
And so we looked at it. I didn't know anything about it at the time, and it wasn't a big issue either way, whatever. But other than the fact that living in Antelope Valley, I rarely drove under 35 miles an hour.
Right.
So, we didn't get it, then think about it. And I don't have an issue with people if that's what they want.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You just need a person. I think, like I said, people need options. People need to be able to exercise options. But I'm just saying, from living in California, now, if I lived in Pasadena and I worked in Pasadena and I didn't have to go nowhere, it wouldn't make no difference to me,
Right.
But like, say, if you're going home to Azusa and you get on that 210 at 5:30, and then you get down there, trying to get from Miss Yolinda through Arcadia, when that thing if you ain't got enough juice, you're gonna be in trouble. Or just like if you ain't got enough gas. So it depends on what's going on. So it depends. I, I got, like I said, I got nothing against folks getting what they want. I got against the government telling me this is what I got to get or I can't get nothing. That's my whole issue.
Right.
And another thing you mentioned as far as the grid, I've seen in California where when you got a super hot summer, they might have brownouts because you got too much of a grid usage just to keep the buildings running. But if people are sucking up more juice trying to charge their cars too, unless you improve the grid, you get more electricity. All it's going to do is create a bigger.
Yeah, this is a big state. If they're going to tackle that assignment about trying to force people to buy, believe me, they have work to do all the way down to near, look, where the border is, close to Tijuana, all the way up in Northern California. I mean, they gotta do some serious building of charging stations, and then developing the grid to be able to hold it all. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't see it. And I know as the years go by, technology increases, the knowledge and the new opportunities may come about. But unless that happens, I can't see that being successful.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is California. I think the citizens are the ones that's going to have to make a decision. Do they want to continue down the road they're going, or do they want to change? From what I'm talking to some people, they seem to think that Mayor Bass might be a one-term mayor in LA. But I think you got to deal with more than just the mayor, and you got to deal with more than just the governor. If you change governors and don't do anything with that
Right.
legislation, ain't nothing gonna happen.
Look, you and I know in Sacramento is where it needs to change.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's where it needs to change because if not, the few Republicans that's in the assembly and in the state senate is not enough. The Democrats outbeat them because even when I've told people when they were asking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example,
Mm.
and they were saying, "Well, California had a Republican." I said, "No." I said Schwarzenegger was Republican, really in name. I would say he was definitely a rhino.
Absolutely,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
said, but you got to remember too, he was also a good friend to Hollywood. I mean, he
Yeah.
had come out of Hollywood, so
Right.
the people were comfortable with him enough
Mm.
that they will say, "Hey, we will let you win because we know you're not going." And they're thinking, we're not going to let you go too far to the right. You'll always be either left or center left, and that's what he turned out to be. Now, I don't know how much you remember about Pete Wilson.
I remember him.
Yeah, now he wasn't. I wouldn't call him because I came here right. I think when he was the governor. I think when I first got here, he
Hmm.
was the governor. Pete Wilson
Hmm.
was 30 years ago, but I didn't detect from him that he was a strong
I
conservative.
think he's more of a moderate kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
guy. Maybe Duke Magian was stronger.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think Wilson was more of a moderate thing. And to Arnold, like I said, I think he was a rhino, but at the same time, he tried to do a few things that they wasn't gonna let him do.
yeah.
Like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
they're gonna keep him from going too far.
yeah. Now Reagan was a true conservative, of course.
Yeah.
Even though he had been connected with Hollywood, but he really stuck by his guns, so to speak. And by his convictions, the values that he had. But I think it won him respect.
Hmm. I think the one thing that California got done many years ago that have saved a lot of folks is when they did that Proposition 13 to stop them from being able to jack up property taxes more than 1% or something each year, because that was a long, long time ago. But when they did that, that forced the citizens or the legislatures to come out and find other creative ways to get more money. Because I remember when I wasn't even a cigarette smoker, when they wanted to put a 50 cents tax on a pack of cigarettes, I was totally against it. And I was trying to tell people, I said, look, you may not care because you're not a smoker, but if you let them tax that stuff, then they're gonna start taxing other stuff. And just like when they were charging, when I left the state, they were charging 10 cents a bag for groceries. I refused to buy it. I refused to give them a dime. If I didn't remember to bring my own bag, I said throw it in the basket. I'm not giving. Just leave it. Because they want to with the plastic. I'm saying, hell, I didn't tell you guys to go to plastic in the first place. You could have kept bags. When
Right.
I grew up, we had paper bags, and we take them bags home and use them as either trash bags or use them as book covers. A matter of fact, I remember cutting out big bags and laying them out and getting my crayons and drawing on them as a kid. Because bags is recyclable. Bags is come from trees, but then they call themselves trying to save trees. But trees are used. We're supposed to use the trees. You can grow trees. God told us to subdue the earth, and these folks, and that was one of the problems that they had too, because they weren't managing the forest, they weren't cleaning it out, and so you got unnecessary fires that could be avoided. That's going back to that maintenance and that leadership. So I would pray uh, that they change. It would be so nice if they can, like I said, get a balance and get common sense on both sides and start working for the people. But the people is going to have to demand that. If the people don't demand it, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, that is absolutely true. Yeah, you know, um, it's funny because you know how you've heard this where people move from California to places like Texas, Florida, and notice that the citizens in those states they always put out kind of I call it a bulletin to tell everybody, you move here, don't try to make this state like the state that you left. Florida's been big on that. Texas has definitely been big on that because, as you know, the Democrats are trying their best to flip Texas.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's one reason why they were letting all those people in, across the Rio Grande and all that stuff. And Governor Albert, I think, has done given the fact that the previous administration was blocking him every time he tried to do something, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to flip Texas and make it a blue state. And Florida right now is pretty much a solid red state. But a lot. I just learned about these things, Sam. It really goes from leadership to leadership because DeSantis down in Florida now, if Byron Donald, if
Yes.
he wins, then it will stay solidly red.
Right.
Because his policies and things will go that way.
Right.
It's that in the future, you never know who you may get in there. You can
Yeah.
get a Democrat, or you can even get a rhino Republican,
Yeah.
who didn't believe in it. Because I was surprised to hear Ron DeSantis was on, I forget what show. He might have been on Sean Hannity's show, and I was watching it. But he was saying, like, even with the illegal immigrants,
Mhm.
to his own surprise, he had to fight with the Republican legislature in Florida because it's predominantly Republican. That's why he's been able to get things done. But
Mhm.
on that issue, he had some Republicans who did not want to put strict laws on deportation and all that stuff. And he couldn't understand why. Then he finally fought with them about it, and then they finally relented, and he was able to get, I think, that measure passed. But it
Mhm.
took him, it wasn't something that came easy like some of the other things that come for him. But it's like, you just know, I don't, the only thing that I can think of, and I know we probably agree on this, is that the Democrats want new voters. That's what they
Yeah.
want. That's why they want the illegals to come in. The Republicans, many of them want cheap labor because a lot of them are wealthy and they hire people, they're business owners. And so they say, hey, I can use some of these people and I ain't got to pay them much.
There you
And,
go.
so they say, well, we should let them come in. And it's like, no, because a lot of these people are violent people. They're mean people. We've seen our citizens killed. We've seen our little girls get raped and killed, murdered. We've seen little boys get abducted. And I mean, it's can go on and on. And so that's the only issue. It's like, so what I was going to say is, I wish there could be a reverse. I
Mm.
wish there could be people who would move to California who are conservative.
Mm.
Like
Well,
do the reverse thing. Like, I mean, just flood this state with thousands upon thousands of conservative leaning people.
well, Pastor, we're gonna have to save that for
Okay.
another discussion because
All
we're
right.
about to run out of time now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
man, I certainly enjoy having you on.
Oh, thank you.
And wow, yeah, it seems like we was just getting warmed up,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, we
but
can do it again. That's
yeah,
for
we're
sure.
gonna have to do it again because we're about to run out. And I just thank you, and we just hope that the Lord moves on the citizens of California
Yeah.
to make it a better state for everybody.
Yeah.
And with that,